I'm Alex Savage from KTVU, Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area. And of course, as everyone is staying at home right now, this can be a very stressful time for parents as well as for kids. Joining us now with some advice on how to handle all of this is Dr. Hansa Bhargava, Pediatrician and Senior Medical Director at WebMD. Dr. Bhargava, it's a very good to have you on. Always nice. What do you think is happening in a lot of homes in terms of the stress level?
Yeah, I think it's unprecedented times. We are seeing probably a lot of stress because of all the various factors that parents really have to handle. So whether it's a stressful job or you lost your job, you have kids at home, whether they're school age or they're little. And so you have all these balls that you're juggling in. It seems like a pressure cooker that a lot of families are facing right now.
Well, what are some of the ways to lower the anxiety in a home? Because we do have a lot going on. I have a lot going on, in my home. Every day it's just nonstop. It feels like it doesn't end. Whether it's it's online classes. For my son, it's online work. For my wife or I, it doesn't seem to end. What are some of the ways that we can manage the stress and lower the anxiety level?
Absolutely. So I think that, first of all, recognizing it is a good thing, right? Because that's a great place to start. But essentially, I would probably put it in two buckets. One is the bucket of yourself, and the second one is the system-wide bucket, the system of home and work and trying to manage all of that. And let me just approach the system-wide first. So I think that one area that people are, losing control over is really the structure, right? So kids tend to not have rules. They don't have to go anywhere. They don't have to get dressed. They don't have to go to school. They don't have to go to activities. And so it's almost like a free-for-all. But maintaining that structure is just really important. So whether it's for you or for your kids, getting up at a proper time, going to bed at a proper time, and shutting those screens down at a proper time, having some semblance of structure can actually really help kids kind of know that they have some expectations, and you as well.
It sounds like from what I've been reading that there's a lot of parents who are noticing that their kids are regressing in the midst of this crisis, falling back on some of the old habits that maybe we as parents thought they grew out of. What types of things what might that look like?
Yeah, and so I totally agree with that. There is regression that could happen. So I'm just going to divide it up into a few age groups. So if you have kids under the age of 4, what that might look like is that all of a sudden a potty trained child is not potty trained anymore, right? They're having accidents, and gosh, that's even more pressure to add to your plate, right? You're managing home, you're managing work, you're managing the kids being there all the time. And then all of a sudden there's regression of habits. So yeah, potty training, tantrums, acting out, they want your attention. And you have to realize that for their world, everything is out just floating in the air. There's no grounding at all. And for kids, they don't deal with that very well. They actually need that structure because they feel safe when there is structure and there's rules. So again, just going back to, trying to maintain some level of structure. I'm not saying, be somebody who's so rigid, but having a structure. And then the second thing is, which is going to be contradictory or may feel contradictory, is actually letting some of that go, to not lose your temper with the kids if that happens, to understand that it is happening for a reason, and to manage it from that perspective.
So, I mean, these are normal reactions during a stressful time for a kid, right? I mean, this is a coping mechanism.
Absolutely. And so I talked about the young kids. I'm going to talk a little bit about the older kids. The older kids have different ways to manifest that. So the age group between 6 and 11 or so may not even come to you and say, hey, I'm feeling like this way, or crying. They might say, hey, I have a stomach ache, or I have a headache, or I don't feel like eating, or, sleeping for a longer time. And they may not even come to you with tantrums or regression, but they might have soft signs like that. And then, of course, there's the teenagers who I sometimes joke about, and I can say this because I have teenagers myself.
Yeah.
And it's almost like going back to the toddler stage where you kind of have those tantrums again, right?
Yeah.
I mean, storming up the
Strong emotion.
stairs and slamming those doors. Yeah, absolutely.
And so the best way to respond is to sort of acknowledge the emotions that your kid is feeling, right? It's not necessarily to come down hard on them.
Absolutely. And so I'm telling you something that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And I can say it as a parent, I can say it as a pediatrician, but it's not easy. But it is the best response you can have. And that really is to take a deep breath and know that your kids are trying to tell you something, not in a great way, but not to react anger with anger. So if you can just calmly deal with it, and then to also go one other step and step back from the situation and say, hey, what is the deal that my child actually is regressing with the toilet training? Is that something that is a killer? No, it's not, right? So let's just let it go this one time, and then we'll just start again tomorrow and see if we can fix that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. But as you said, that's the hard part is trying to take that deep breath and to stay calm in that situation.
And that's why I think I go to the second part. We talked about the system-wide stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And managing that. But then what about the other really important thing is to manage your own stress,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
Because you can't really parent and take that deep breath. I mean, I'm sure, there's people who are listening to this, they're just laughing. Oh yeah, right, I'm going to take a deep breath. Well, I'll tell you, the deep breath is not the first thing you do. The first thing you do is you take care of yourself so you can actually get to that point where you can take the deep breath. You can't lift 150-pound weight without lifting 8-pound, 10-pound, 20-pound weights. So you kind of have to almost train yourself to take care of yourself, and then you'll get to a point where you can manage those other stressful situations. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Self-care first, absolutely. Yeah. I'm sure I can't be the only one who is thinking, well, I have younger kids. They're not watching the news. How are they picking up on the fact that our world is in the middle of a crisis? Is it through us? Are we projecting that anxiety about what's happening in the world onto our kids?
That's a great question. Kids have the unbelievable and uncanny ability to pick up your stress level, without a doubt. So if you're stressed, the kids know it. It's not what you're saying. It's not what you're doing. They can just feel it. They're like little sponges who just know about your emotions. So again, I would say, it's really important to know that if they are acting out, if they're not watching the news, they may have heard things from you, talking to your friends or your partner or whoever else it is on the phone. Is it that you're stressed out? Is that you're not sleeping? Is it that you're not eating? Or is it that you're acting even a little bit edgy? They pick up on all of that.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes we don't give them enough credit, but you're absolutely right. And then there's the whole idea, and you talked about it, that the routine is completely different. And parents are home the entire an entire day now, working from home, and so every they obviously pick up on the fact that something's a little bit off, not to mention the fact that people are going outside, we're going outside and wearing masks, and so there are telltale signs. How much of when you talk about the parents working from home and then kids being at home and trying to do distance learning, how much are kids, you think, trying to just get younger kids especially just try to get their parents' attention when parents are trying to, their attention is focused on work while they're at home?
Yeah, another really good point. And yes, though the wanting your attention spans from the age of 1 to probably 18. I mean, they do want your attention. I mean, whether it's crying about, a toy when you're young, or the 11-year-old who just wants to like interrupt your meetings constantly and wants to be in your office all the time, or the teenager who acts out like my own son did yesterday, which it suddenly dawned on me that he just wanted my attention because I was busy all day with work.
Right.
Who's just coming there and asking random questions that are not relevant to that point in time. We have to, as parents, acknowledge that, this is really hard for them. It really is. And it's hard for you. And I know that those words are not, it's not easy to take that away. There's no magic pill, but really to understand that it will be okay, that it'll get better, and trying to let your kids know that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the hardest part too, is because I think maybe when you get kids that are a little bit older, they kind of do. I don't know, maybe your kids, they kind of want to know, when is this all going to end, and that feels like that's a tough question for a parent to answer, because that's it's nearly an impossible question for anyone to answer, right?
Yes, absolutely, Alex. I think so. And we're all stressed about that ourselves, right? Like, we're anxious about that because it's hard to manage something emotionally when you don't know when the end is in sight, right? But this is a great time to actually point them towards the fact that, look, let's talk about what we do have, first of all. And, let's talk about history and stories of the past. So we know that this is not the first time that we've seen a pandemic. We know it's not the last time we'll see a pandemic, right? And if you could actually, it's interesting because we actually ended up, my kids are 13, and my husband actually ordered the book, The Plague, for them, which was really interesting, right? Because the plague happened, right?
Yeah,
the Spanish flu happened. And so if you have older kids, it would be great to actually talk about stories. Maybe there's a grandparent who can talk about, some of the times they went through. Were they alive in World War II? I mean, could they talk about some of the stories and the difficulties they had, and where they may have been? Were they in Europe at the time? I mean, that was a very stressful time. Or is it that they saw some sickness go through? And this is where we talked about stories last time, Alex. Yeah. The stories really help, actually, for them to know that we have gone through this before, and it will be fine ultimately. But it is stressful, there's no doubt, but we will all be fine ultimately. And then also point out what you do have, whether it's the fact that we're all healthy, or we have food on the table, or just a nice place to stay in, all of those things.
Yeah, it's important to focus on those positives. As you try to manage all of the stress kind of swirling around us. I would say this is one of the greater challenges I've faced as a parent. I don't know how you feel about that. I mean, do you think this is up there? I mean, having a newborn baby is stressful in its own way, but this is kind of, for me, it's a very unique challenge.
It is really a unique challenge, I think, for all of us, and especially for us who have children and we're managing all of those things. But I think, as I said, I think the 3 pillars are to really be grateful for what you have, to know that there will be end to it. And the last thing is really to take care. I know I keep saying this, but I cannot emphasize how important it is to take care of yourself, because if you are tired, you will be cranky. If you are watching too much news, probably, and I understand news.
Or doing too much news. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you're,
That's true. It's true.
Yeah.
Oh,
but,
you're absolutely right.
A media fast is great, right? And sometimes picking up that phone and doing FaceTime with your friends and just having that venting session really helps. I mean, it really does. And then you can get some renewed energy to tackle your kids and your job and everything else on your plate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely does. Great advice. I will take it to heart. I hope folks watching this will take it to heart as well. It's always really good to chat with you. Appreciate you coming on. Dr. Hansa Bhargava, pediatrician and the senior medical director at WebMD. Take care of yourself and your family.
Thank you,
and well, until we talk next time, okay? Thank you. And I will let everyone out there know we have more information that we have put up at our website. It's coronavirusnow.com. And I'm Alex Savage from KTVU, Fox 2 News in the San Francisco Bay Area.